the demo video for the employee schedule planner. If you have not purchased this template, I will leave links in the description box below so you can go ahead and grab a copy. When you purchase this template, the first tab is the instructions tab. In this tab, you will find my contact information as well as a step-by-step guide that you can reference while you're using this template. For the rest of this demo video, I will switch over to the demo copy of this template, and the first tab is the setup tab. The first part of the setup tab is where you would add in your employee information. You can add up to 100 employees, however, this can be expanded if necessary. The next part of the setup tab is where you would set up your schedule. Now, this is the most important part of this template, so it has to be done carefully and thoughtfully. The first area we're going to look at is the start time and end time. If you are not interested in calculating the number of hours that your employee is working per shift, per month, or per year, then you don't have to worry about this part of the template. Go ahead and type in the name of the working days here, so the shift type or the shift name. You have 8 different types of working shifts that you can use. And down here, you would type in your non-working shifts. And here you have 12 different types. So this can be a mix of rest days, the days that your employees are not working, holidays, sick days, vacation, etc. As a general rule of thumb, any part of the template in the setup area that has this gray color means that you don't want to touch it. It does contain formulas that helps the template work the way it's supposed to. So for example, this area right here and this area right here should not be edited. In order to enter working shifts, if you're not planning on using the number of hours worked, you would edit it here and you would edit it here. If you plan on assessing how many hours your employees are working over a course of weeks or over a course of months and a whole year, this is where you would set that up. You can select any start time. They're broken down in increments of 30 minutes. If you need this broken down differently, that can be adjusted as well. Just let me know and I'll be happy to set it up. But for the most part, most shifts start at the top of the hour or 30 minutes into the hour. Let's go ahead and set up a few shifts for your workplace. So we'll start with the first one. Let's say this shift starts at AM. So you can go ahead and select 9 from the drop down, or you can actually type in 9 and any drop down that has the number 9 shows up. So if it's going to be a 9 to 9, you can select 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. And as you can see, that is a 12-hour shift, and it shows up here as a shift name 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. The reason why this has shift hours and shift name is because if you want the shift hours to be displayed in the schedule, you can do so. If you want to use the shift name instead, because that's what everyone is accustomed to seeing, you can do so as well. So you would set up the time and then you would set up the shift name as I have done with these examples. But then if you want the shift name to show up, you have to check this box. Doing this would activate the rest of the templates to trigger it to use the shift name here instead of the shift hours. If you want the shift hours to show up, don't check this box and you don't have to put anything here and the template will work just fine. So let's go ahead and set up a few more hours, okay? Now, as you can see, a 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. is 12 hours. However, if you want to subtract the break time from the shift, you can do it in 2 ways. One, you can just enter the times directly and then use this subtract break time. Click on that and select the break time. So if your break time is 30 minutes, it would be 0.5, which represents half an hour. And once you click on that, you see that it subtracts 30 minutes from the total number of hours. And this then gets reflected when the number of hours worked is calculated for each employee. If you don't want to do this, that's fine. Just go ahead and click 0 and it resets. You can play around with the start time and the end time to take the lunch or the break time into consideration, or you can use the formula right here. In this section, you would enter in your company logo if you have one. If you don't have one, delete it, and it removes the placeholder here and throughout the rest of the template. If you have a logo and you want to place it in the template, click in that cell, delete. Then you would go to Insert, Image, Insert Image in Cell, upload your image from your computer or from any of the sources that are available. Click and Browse, open. And as you can see now, the image is in that cell. And here is what it looks like in the January tab. The logo now shows up here. Let's say you have entered your start and end time. You have entered what you want to call the shift name, and you have entered what you want to call the non-working days. The last part of this template would be to enter in your holidays. It does come with standard holidays used in the United States. However, you can edit it to include whatever holiday you want. To do this, you would delete the holiday name and delete the holiday date that's already there. And then you type in your own holiday name here and select the dates for that holiday. Let's say it's October 9th. And the reason why we're doing this is that it will show up in the calendar, in the schedule, a different color for that holiday. So that's it for the setup tab. You can always come back here and make more changes as necessary. The next tab is the dashboard tab. This tab would only be activated after we have entered information. So we're going to skip this and we'll come back to it at the end. The next tab is called the extended data tab. Just like the dashboard tab, the extended data table will be updated after you have started entering information into the rest of the monthly tabs. And I will come back to this after we've gone through the monthly tabs. This template has been set up for January through December. It will work for an entire year. And when the next year rolls around, you'll make a copy and then set it up to work for that year. Now, each month has its own dedicated tab, meaning that all the schedule for January has to be entered in the January tab. Now, I do realize that every institution has the scheduling process set up differently. For example, it might be every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks or every 6 weeks. In that case, you still can use this calendar. You just leave those spaces blank. So what do I mean by that? Let's say the schedule block runs from the 1st of January through February 14th. You go ahead and use the scheduling tab as is. And then in February, only schedule from February 1st through February 14th, meaning that you would leave the spaces blank. Okay. The reason why it's important to keep each month in its own tab is because all of the calculations that allow the dashboard to work and display correct and accurate information depends on each month having its own dedicated tab. That being said, I will go ahead and delete this information to show you how it works. So we have a completely blank slate. Okay. The places you don't want to delete information would be this area right here and this area right here, all the way at the end. Now we have a blank slate for January. Let's go ahead and pull in some information. Because we have already entered the employee information in the setup tab, all we have to do is select the employee. So I'm going to select 5 employees. This red color and the symbol tells you it's a duplicate selection. So you can see I've selected this employee's name twice. If I change it to a different employee, that warning disappears. So go ahead and select employees. Now, before we get started with putting in the schedule, you can see that January 1st is highlighted here as a holiday. So if we go back to our setup calendar, you can see that because we have January 1st, 2025 as a holiday, it is highlighted right here. As an example, I'm going to change this to January 6th. Let's say the holiday is January 6th instead of January 1st. If I go to the calendar, you can see that this blue highlight moves over to January 6th. And that is the reason why, even though some of these holidays are the same every year, but because the day of the week can't change, it's important that you select the exact date for the holiday. So if you're using this for 2026, for example, you'll go ahead and double click here and scroll all the way through to the next year and select the correct dates. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and enter some schedules. For this employee, I'm going to do 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Okay, for 3 days that week. And as we select this, you can see that because this is a 12-hour shift, it automatically calculates 36 hours for this employee. Let's say instead of having the hours show up here, we want to display the names of the shifts because that's what you are accustomed to displaying for your schedule. So go back to the setup tab. You have to make sure that you have completed this area with your shift names. To activate this, we're going to click on this use actual shift names, these ones here. So just check this box. Once you do so, we go back to January. Now you get these error messages because it's switched over to fetching that name from the shift name as opposed to the hours. So this no longer is valid. So if you click on the drop down, now you see the shift names that we have entered in the setup tab appear here. And we have the error message because 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. is no longer an option. Go ahead and reassign the shift names to the schedule as opposed to the hours. Now, it doesn't matter if you use the shift names or the hours. The formulas will still calculate the total number of hours that the employee has worked because it has been built into the formula. It recognizes that either 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or day shift 1 has 12 hours assigned to it. So you have the flexibility of using either or. The one thing you have to do again is if you decide to use the shift name, you have to reassign the colors. So right now it's all gray. Okay. You have to go back here and then reassign the colors. So assign this color to this shift, this color to that shift, etc. Okay. So you just go through each one and reassign the color. Once you're done, click on apply to all and it applies the color to the entire shift. Going back here, I'm going to check this off. And then when we go back here, these no longer work. It switches back to the hourly shift. Let's reassign her 7 a.m. to 7:3 a.m. shifts. And then for this we'll assign 8-hour shifts for 5 days. And for this employee, let's just randomly assign a combination of shifts. So as you can see, the total number of hours show up for week 1 because we've only scheduled week 1. Each week is separated by a double border. So this is week 1. We have week 2 here, week 3, week 4 and 5 are combined. Going back here, we can schedule some rest days. You can keep track of the hours here, and then when you scroll all the way down, it tells you the number of days worked. So for Adams Chloe, we selected 3 days. Okay, so you can see 3 working days and the rest are rest days. All the way down here, you can see 3 days selected, 4 rest days and 0 days off. So days off are essentially non-working days without rest days because we already have the rest days showing up here. So you can see how many days this employee has scheduled for other things like holidays, vacation, etc. So let's schedule a few holidays here, and then let's put a vacation day here and here. Okay, now if we scroll all the way down, you can see now we have 2 days off. That's because of the holiday as well as the vacation day. Now at the top of this schedule in the January month, and you wanted to take a quick look at this employee's summary, you can go ahead and do that right here. To do this, you would select the employee name. So let's say Adams Chloe. You can see right here in week 1, she's worked 24 hours. And of course, that corresponds to 24 hours that we already have showing up here in week 1. You can see 4 rest days, and this is represented by these 4 rest days, 1 holiday right here, no vacation, no sick leave, bereavement, and the rest of them. So we have jury duty, personal day, etc., etc., etc. And we have it for each week. So we have week 1, okay, week 2, week 3, and week 4. So this information is broken down into the different weeks. If we were to select a holiday, let's say holiday January 8th for week 2, you can see for week 2 right now it says 1. And then for week 3, let's say week 3 right here, another holiday, 1 shows up here. If we change it to vacation, 1 shows up here. Just a quick way to see a summary of that employee's information. Here is where you would change the start date. So it already says January 1st, 2025, but if you wanted to use it the following year, you'll go ahead and change the date from January 1st, 2025. Okay, we can change the year, or you can navigate to January 2026 and select the dates, or you can just change the year here. So I'm going to change the dates. And as you can see, the dates change here. What you will notice is that now it says January 1st, 2026. If I select January 5th, 2026, it's not going to change it because this template has been fixed to ensure that it always starts January 1st and ends January 31st. So it doesn't matter what date you select here. If you select February, it will change to February, okay? But it will start February 1st all the way through to February 28th. But don't change this to February and this January because the formulas will not work. The name of the month here has to match the name of the month here for the data to work correctly. So I'm going to change this back to what it was originally. And that's how the scheduling would work. So after you are done with the month, you'll go ahead to the next month and select the schedules as necessary. The other thing I want to show you is the colors here for the drop down. When you buy your template and you make changes to the setup tab, the colors that I have assigned will disappear. And this is because every time you make a change, you have to reassign the colors. It's just how Google Sheets work. To change the colors, click on this arrow. Doesn't matter which one you click on, any of them. And then scroll all the way down until you see this edit button. Click on the edit button. And this is where you change your colors. Okay, so you can reassign the colors. As long as you're not touching this area or this area, you're fine. Go ahead and reassign the colors as you want. Unfortunately, it will not change for the rest of the month. So you can see the colors are still unchanged for February, but then you can go ahead and change the color for February when you get to making the schedule for that month. And then you would approach the rest of the months the same way we approach January. Let's go now to the dashboard area so I can show you how it works. The dashboard gives you a summary, a bird's eye view, an overview of everything you have entered into the template from January all the way through December. The dashboard is divided into 3 parts. You have this area that gives you information specific to an employee. You can select a month, select a name, and it gives you information specific to that employee, broken down by months, by weeks, and for the entire year. The middle portion of this dashboard gives you information about all employees. It gives you the monthly working hour distribution as well as the shift distribution. And I'll come back to each one and explain what the graph tells you. And finally, all the way at the right, you have a list. So if you want to see who's working the most number of hours, who is working the most number of days, and the number of days off, and the number of rest days, you would see that, but it shows you, of course, only the top 10 because there is limited information. If you want more information, that is where the extended data table comes in. The extended data table is meant to give you more in-depth information. So I don't anticipate you will be going to this tab every single day. It's really meant to help you with answering specific questions that you will not find in the dashboard or easily find by going through each monthly tab. It's sort of like a deep dive. If you have a specific question about a specific employee and a specific shift, you probably would be able to find the answer in the extended data table. Now, there are a lot of collapsible columns because it's a lot of information put into one space. If you do try to collapse the column, you will get this warning. And this is because within this template, there is a formula, but as long as you're collapsing and expanding, it's not a problem. Go ahead and click on don't show this again for 5 minutes. Click on OK. You're not messing anything up. It's just allowing you to collapse and expand the areas that may have formulas, but it doesn't mean that you are changing any of the formulas, so that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just quickly show you in its collapse view and then show you what it looks like when it's expanded. We'll come back to this, but I just wanted to show you that if you need more information that you cannot get from the dashboard, that you cannot get from this limited list, the extended data table has everything else. So let's go back to the dashboard, we'll walk through each section, and then we'll go back to the extended data table. All right, so starting with the top, if I remove this, you see that there's no information showing up here. And this is because to activate this, you have to select the month above. So let's start with January. And when we select January, it shows January 2024. And this is because it's using the current year. If you're using this template next year, January 2025 will show up here automatically. So if I were to use the current month, which is October 2024 automatically shows up here. It's dynamic to the year that you're using this template. Let's go back to January. Once we select January here, now I'm going to remove this so I can show you how it looks like without any employee's name selected. Now I'm going to go ahead and select an employee. Let's select this employee right here. The first area tells you their weekly distribution. So how many hours are they scheduled to work in January? Okay. This employee is scheduled 8 hours total. So you can see the total here, and 28 hours are in the first week, week 1. So you can go back and double check. For this employee in January, you can see we only have scheduled hours in January, which is 28 hours. Let's add 2 more shifts in week 2 for this employee. Let's say 77 and another 77. If you go back to the dashboard now, you can see we put 24 hours into week 2. Week 2 shows up here, 24 hours. With a total number of hours now being 52 weeks. So it gives you a distribution of the breakdown of the number of hours for that month for this employee broken down by week. If I change this to February, the same thing happens. This changes because the hour distribution for this employee is different month to month. So let's go back to January. The next graph here shows the weekly distribution as well, but for non-working shifts, okay, in January. So any holidays, any vacation, any sick leave, parental leave, etc. It shows a summary of that here. However, here we have 2 rest days, 1 holiday, and 1 vacation for week 1, and nothing for week 2 and 3. So let's go back and add a few more. So for this employee, let's add sick leave and jury duty. Going back to the dashboard now, you can see for week 2, we have 1 day sick leave, 1 day jury duty. So very dynamic graph that can tell you specifically what's happening for that employee for that month broken down by week. Next, we have pie charts for working and non-working shifts. So this gives you a summary of the working shift. So this employee was scheduled to work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 9 a.m. to 5, 1 to 9. So 3 different shifts, and you can see that summary here. And then in January, so this is for the entire month, not broken down by week, we have this holidays, rest days, vacation, etc. broken down. So you have working shifts and non-working days shown up here. And here is this employee's annual summary. So you can see how they worked from January through December based on the type of shifts they've worked. So for example, in January, they worked 3 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. shifts. Okay. We also know that by hovering on this graph, because you can see it's the same number here, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. shifts. Not only that, we get that information for February, March, April, all the way through to December. And finally, we have the same graph, but this time for non-working days. So non-working shift, holidays, vacation, sick leave, personal days, etc. And you can see the distribution for the entire year in one place. If I change this from January to February, the information here and here changes. Of course, this information will not change because this is the distribution for the entire year, and this information stays the same as well. So it shows you the summary for the entire year, while these change based on the month selected here and of course the employee selected here. All right, so that is it for the employee specific information. Moving over to the middle part of the graph. By the way, right at the top here, you can navigate to each month by clicking on this tab and going to that month. So clicking on this, it takes me to March, go back to the dashboard. January takes me to January. So it's an easy way to navigate back to the other tabs while you're already in the dashboard. The first graph here is all employees, the total number of hours scheduled to work per month. So this is the annual distribution. You can see that the hours are shown for each week. Okay, each week has its own color for each month and for each year. So this is a stacked graph, and it's a really efficient way to see information distributed across categories over a time period, and this time period being one full year. Now, the second set of graphs are pie charts, and these charts mirror this chart. So these are individual employee charts, and these are all employees. So this represents working shifts, and this represents non-working days, just like these two represent. So you can compare the overall distribution to the individual distribution. Okay, same with this. These are all the non-working days taken by all of the employees versus the individual non-working days by this employee that has been selected here. And you can see that for February, the 9 to 5 p.m. shift is the one that has the highest percentage. And for the non-working days, most of the days off as expected would be rest days. The next graph is the working shift type schedule for all employees. So it's similar to this, where this is the individual and this is for the entire group. You can see the shift distribution for the entire year for all employees. And then this graph, also similar to this graph, shows you the non-working days distribution for January through to December for all employees. But the last part of this template displays top 10 employees for different criteria. Here is top 10 employees for hours worked. And this is for February. So we can change this to January, and it shows top employee hours worked for January. As you can see, it shows only 5 here because we only have 5 employees scheduled in January. But for the other months, because we have more employees, it shows just the top 10 employees, and it shows you the number of hours here. And then we have the same information for top 10 employees, but broken down by the number of days, number of rest days, and number of days off. And remember, days off is a combination of all the non-working days without the rest days. All right. And that is the dashboard in a nutshell. A lot of information. This video will be broken down by chapters. So if you need to come back and review a specific part of this tutorial, you can always come back, go to the section that you need to review and check it out. All right, so now let's go to the extended data table. I'll collapse this and we are going to get that pop-up message. We're going to click OK. It will show up every 5 minutes, so just keep that in mind. This is what it looks like fully collapsed, and this is to make it easier to manage. We're going to first look at this first column right here. Expand to view data for all employees, okay? For working shift and non-working days. When we expand this, it shows you data for all employees, working shift and non-working days, okay? So when we expand this, we have 2 different sections. So let's expand both of them. The first one shows you working shifts, and let's expand the second one. And the second one shows non-working days. And the reason why the columns are collapsed, of course, is because there are lots of different options for working shifts and the non-working shifts. This area represents the working shift. So you can see the shifts that we have created in the setup tab. Okay, all the shifts show up here. And here you can select the month. Okay, for the month of January, you can see who worked 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and how many times did that person work that shift. So for Adams Chloe, 47 a.m. to 7 p.m. shift, she worked that twice for January. And we can double check that. Go back to our January tab, Adams Chloe, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So you can see those are the only 2 shifts she worked. Going back here, you can see that's verified. All right. And then for this employee, she worked that same shift 3 times. And then you can go through to each shift to see how many employees worked what shift. And you can see some shifts have no employees because we did not use that shift in January. And then you can see the same information for February, for March, for April, etc. Now, you would notice that some names here are grayed out. Why is this? And this is because if you collapse this and go to the next section, this employee's name is selected here. I'll come back to this in a second. So this first tab is for working shifts, and this second tab is for non-working shifts. So if I uncollapse this, you can see the same information that we just saw for working shifts, but now for non-working days. So if you wanted to know which employee had the most number of personal days used for the month November, just change the month to November, go to that specific holiday, personal day, and you can see right here, Brown Samuel. So think of the extended data table as a place to answer very specific questions. So it's not something you'll be using every day. So you can just hide it. And if you have a specific question to answer, because it pulls information from all of different tabs, is the best place to get that information. So let's just collapse this too, and now go to the individual employee section. And this is where you would answer questions for that specific employee. Let's select Adam Chloe. You can see the number of hours she worked January through December, the total, and then you can see the breakdown of the number of shifts for January, February, March, April, etc. Down here for this same employee, because when you select the name here, it applies for all the tables. So this table is the non-working days. Again, the number of holidays, the number of rest days show up here. And then finally, right here, we have the weekly distribution as well as the annual summary. So days worked versus days off. Some of this information you can get from the individual tabs, but if you're wanting to look at all of the information for that employee for all the months, this is where you would come to get that information. Okay, that brings me to the end of this walkthrough video. Remember, my contact information is here. You can contact me if you have any questions, as well as look through the step-by-step guide that's here that will answer some specific questions as you are using this template. And finally, if you have not purchased this template, I will leave links in the description box so you can go ahead and grab a copy. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.